It might be interesting for you just to ask some questions, some questions among yourselves for a few minutes, based on what you've heard from each other and what your experience is with your particular application. What do you want to know, or what do you want to comment about? And then after about 20 minutes, we'll open it up to the whole audience.
One question I had, so you said you'd banked 5,000 kilowatts. Can you cash that in at any time, or do you have to?
No, it stays as long as the contract with the KU, as long as we live there.
It'll continue.
It's in our account.
Okay.
And I don't really think we could move and take it with us.
Okay.
Isn't that the way?
Yeah.
It's as long as we live there. I mean, it's really, we did not realize that we would be generating that many kilowatt hours. A few months this summer, we've actually generated 1,000 in a month's time from our panels. And I didn't say, we of course did get it to take advantage of the 30% federal tax credit, which does help with the same as the geothermal, both of those. I didn't think to look on the bill to see exactly how much we pay, what a kilowatt hour is worth. There are all those extra charges. That's basically what we're paying, or all those other fees that they tack onto your bill. So,
what is it? I've heard, Sue, that we buy the electricity retail and we sell it wholesale. Is that sort of how that has worked for you all? In other words, when you have the panel on your house, the solar system, it's all set up as credits for you, or is there?
Well, actually, our bill shows they put a new meter out there that the first meter they put out, you could actually see the little wheels going backwards when you were sending electricity onto the grid. But now it's a digital meter, so the numbers are actually, I can't read them, but Phil can go out there and read the numbers on the meter. But our bill from KU each month tells us how many kilowatts that we sent that we generated from our system that went onto the grid, then how many we used that month, and then the difference between those two, it's even exchange, is what goes into what they call our credit, to our credit. So it's every month it's listed on the bill that way. And then the way we submit we can read the meter as to how many kilowatts. We use the cumulative amount each month, and we submit that once a month to the system that's buying our solar renewable energy credits. So, and then once you get 1,000 credit, 1,000 kilowatt hours, then every 3 months they send you a check for each 1,000 that you generated. So it's a nice offset. After 5 years, that contract will probably change, and the prediction is that they won't pay as much as they are right now. But for the 5 years, it's going to be useful to offset. But your system would certainly complement ours very well, because we have we actually heat with propane, and because it's just the two of us in the house now, we're really good about keeping all those switches turned off and nothing extra running in the house. That helps immensely, watching when you leave a room that you turn everything off. But we do use wood burning stoves and cut wood, and that keeps our use of propane down. But your system's much better than hauling wood into the house. I know exactly why Lucy didn't want to put up with that.
So Clay, how much wood does it take every day, and how often a day do you have to load up your furnace?
Typically twice a day, and I have my ricks set up as they're 2 foot by 8 foot, so they're exactly half a rick, and you take, Wesley, you might know there's 8 of those is a cord, or 4 of those is a cord. I get confused on that because I don't worry about it. I have three ricks that I perpetually keep filled, and hard to say. Depends on the weather. If it's extremely cold, wind's really blowing, it might use more. One of the things I failed to add about the system is that it's a forced air system. So when the water temperature drops, I have it set between I think it's 160 and 175 degrees. So I keep it in a pretty tight window for consistency. When it drops to 160 degrees, that kicks on a little fan that's on the front door of the firebox, and that which of course increases the burn, but that ups the water temperature. And so you kind of have to, I have to monitor and watch. You can have aquastat set. My unit's 100 feet from the house, and it'd be nice to know when that water temperature drops, and it's staying at 160 a little longer than it should. That means it's time to throw some more wood in, but generally about twice a day. I can check it first thing in the morning. It's not a nuisance. I mean, the type of person that's going to put these in probably enjoys messing with something like that anyway. That's another issue I failed to mention, is that my application, that hydronic furnace, is great, but you kind of have to be in the right cycle of life to really enjoy it. You have to have the natural resources. You have to have the ability to go and procure your own wood. And so, I was appreciating the efficiency of your system, but I was thinking, gosh, I'm the guy putting the energy in, right? I'm supplying a lot of the BTUs of my system. Yeah. But that's part of the beauty of the model for me in the application of it. But
you still have to have electricity.
You still have to have electricity, which, you talk about this. I still need to do the solar, and I probably would not do the. I don't know that I would do grid tie. I'd probably do an off-grid battery bank and use it more as a backup system, as opposed to being dependent on a gas generator.
Well, we want to do have a backup battery too. We haven't gotten that
Although
yet.
I like the efficiency of sending credits on and getting a check back. So nice. You have to pony up in order to get in the game. But
that's with your solar. You mentioned in one day you put approximately 1,000 kilowatt hours back in the grid.
In a month.
In a month. Mm-hmm. That would, for instance, in this geothermal study, 12,000 kilowatts did the heating, cooling, and hot water. So, that would zero out this system, and you wouldn't have to buy any more propane.
We would like that too.
You're a salesman.
He's a good salesman, isn't he?
Just throwing it out there.
How about if you want to convert your existing home to geothermal, what kind of financial investment would that be, Wesley? Let's say the average.
For say this $20,000 system on a new home, if you have ductwork in place, probably between $12,000 and $14,000 to convert. If you have two systems, that's typically your second system would be an upstairs system. It would be a lot smaller, and that one would range around $8,000. So it all depends on the setup. Typically, you'll save 25 or 30% of that because you already have the ductwork. But outside of that, we still have to do the drilling, hot water, several different things there that have to be done along with that. But typically, you could average around $4,000 per ton. So if you know how many tons of air conditioning or heating you have in your house, that kind of gives you an idea. Mm-hmm. And the credit's available on new construction. Existing doesn't affect that.
Clay and Sue, do you want to say anything about the upfront costs of your systems?
Well, on the research that I had done, it basically said we ended up putting in what was the size of our system, 7.755 kilowatt system. Is that right? It would be like run $8 to $10 per watt, but ours came in about half that. So, but it is a big investment, but the 30% comes off a big chunk. Mm-hmm. So
I'm not good on the math, but like would the upfront cost of a geothermal be somewhat similar to
they would
full
be
solar?
Comparable. Yeah.
They would.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the hydronic wood stove?
It's a little more accessible. It's kind of the poor man's alternative, because you can get into a hydronic system for after the installation, the purchasing of the items for the duct work and the PEX lines and the pumps and all that stuff, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. You're probably looking anywhere from $6,000 to $12,000. $12,000 being really on the high end, with a lot more computerized stuff. And there are folks in our county, people in our county who have the central boiler system and really like it. I'm perfectly content with my more modest system. But what I would say is we invested, it was $4,600 for the furnace. We probably invested another $2,000 to have it installed. That means lines were dug and installed into the house. The water system had to be installed in the house, to the ductwork and to the hot water. We immediately, first month of use, saved $100 on our electric. First month of use, $100. There's at least a $30 per month advantage just on the hot water that it produces. So it's one thing I did fail to mention. But so we thought that, based on our projection and the escalating cost of electricity, and which, of course, as you know, if you follow the news, is going to continue to rise in our state. The crossover point, the break-even point for us will come this winter. So, it's free heat for us. So I like it when the temperature drops. So.
Okay, audience, would you like to join into this conversation?
I have a question. Wesley, did you say that the energy credits are not for retrofits?
No, they are.
They are
They
for
are.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And once again, over and beyond your federal credits, there's typically a local co-op credit. For instance, Water Furnace right now is issuing a $1,000 instant credit themselves on replacement of an existing geothermal unit. So the rebates are out there. Just a matter of putting your hands around them. And the federal credit, who's to say what our government's going to do? Nobody knows that. This credit's available till, as of right now, throughout the 2016 year. It could end next year. Who knows? So whether it might be sooner than later to jump on.
Is the government actually paying these rebates right now since the government is shut down?
Not today.
Not today. Just checking.
If you had a former well that had gone dry, could you use that well site as a geothermal drill site?
Actual water well? Like,
Yeah.
you could. It would be an open loop system then. There's some more, little more goes into that as far as keeping the water quality correct for the functionality of that system. There would be a little more maintenance involved in it versus everything I've kind of spoke about tonight is a closed loop system. One thing I didn't talk about, the water. A typical geothermal system will hold approximately, let's say, 75 to 80 gallons of water. We mix that with a 15 to 20% methanol solution, which don't be alarmed or EPA or it's not ozone friendly. Methanol is no different than windshield washer fluid. The only difference is you spraying it on your windshields, it runs off in the street and down in the gutter and in the ground. We keep it sealed in that system. We can
Like
even.
Freon.
Yes, ma'am.
It's
And on this loop, we can even offer up to a 75-year warranty, loop warranty, that it will not leak. So that would pretty well do all of us in, I think.
for the pipeline. That's good. I was just curious about a well site.
Just a little more maintenance involved, but it can be done. We have pond loops too. If you have a 1 acre pond, there's a lot of BTU load that can be absorbed from a 1 acre pond. It needs to be approximately 16 feet deep. The loop itself would take up 5 or 6 feet of depth, and then you need 10 foot of water cover on top of that. So pond loops are a real good source too of collecting this energy.
So you have to have that water source underground. Is that right?
Well, not. It's best, like majority of our loops, if we can get down and drill straight through rock, that is best for us as far as drilling and the ease, and then you backfill that trench with your shavings, your lime dust, and actually pack that. Water ledges can create issues with the drill itself on getting a nice clean borehole for your loop. So, but
Wesley, what's the cost differential between boring and the pond?
drilling right now, our typical 4-ton system will run, let's say, $2,500 to $3,000 for the actual drilling itself. Where if you do a pond loop, it's just a matter of the backhoe getting to it and digging it back to the house at approximately 6 feet in depth. The issue here is you typically get into rock ledges. I know on your property, it's probably not, it's just a better, you can kind of tell when you pull into a site if you're going to have some issues. If you're going to get into rock, you just really want that loop buried at 6 feet to keep your heat transfer good when you bring it out of that pond. If you don't, you're just really affecting the efficiency of that system. But it's mainly just the extra expense, just whatever that expense to dig to that pond back to your house is it. Yeah, you could save $2,500 probably. $500 would probably get you a 500-600 foot long trench to a pond. We can go up to, we have one right now that's about 1,000 feet to the lake. And it functions fine. It's actually about an 8,000 square foot home. Guys tickled to death with it. So.
I have a question for Sue and for Clay. Sorry. You said that this winter you're going to break even, so to speak, and you put it in 2010, right?
Yes, right.
Okay.
So-
And then, and the last question for you is about, you've got all of your wood from your own property. It says.
Well, let me preface that. I accept offers of, if you ever need a tree cleaned up or whatever.
Because don't lumber companies, don't they have spillover stuff that, the sawmills and stuff where you can go get stuff for free?
I have heard that you can go to flooring factories and factories that'll cut off the ends of these and have nice chunks. I just don't have the network, so yeah.
Well, and you haven't needed it yet.
Right.
And how much wood do you use per season?
That's the question I didn't answer when Sister Claire asked, because I don't, unfortunately, I haven't kept a good record of that. Like I said, when my 3 racks, I got to, rack 1's getting low, got to go out and fill it up. And let's just throw out, let's say, 2 cords, maybe 3. It depends on the weather. We've had some mild winters, and so on average 2-3 cords of wood.
For the season.
Yeah.
Sue, we've talked about doing solar just in the 10-year, we're probably in year 1 of the 10 years before we do it. But, did you all look at the difference between putting on the house and then putting actually on the stands that are away from the house? Did you all look at the difference, or are you always going to put it on top of the house?
Well, we didn't really look at the difference. And when the installer came, and because of the orientation of our house and the fact that we didn't have any trees, that we had to remove 1 tree that was close to the back porch. But all of our other trees were far enough away. He just said it was set just perfectly to capture the right amount. It has a southern exposure at the back of our house. So that we didn't really consider any other alternative, although we would have had space to do that if we wanted to, but we didn't compare the cost on that, no.
Other than the safety of the panels, when you set them out in a field or whatever, being able to keep everything away from wild animals or anything like that, that has to be considered.
Yeah, because when we looked into it, I don't think we would be a candidate. The house wouldn't be a candidate to put the panels directly on top. We have shade trees. The house was built in 1850, so they're there to keep the house old-fashioned. That's how you keep the house cool, is to make sure there's shade. So those trees aren't, unless we remove them, which, neither one of us would want to do that.
Well, like I said, the tree we gave up was causing problems anyway, and it was a water maple, and it wasn't. We shouldn't.
Yeah, ours are water maples too.
Well, we should have never allowed it to grow up that close to the house
Well, ours
because
grow
the
up-
roots.
That's right, ours, we have a similar problem, but they're already there. So what we just
Right.
discussed, it would be removing those trees to put them up on the rooftop. So we thought that the only option we have is to put them in stakes. So
And there are solar farms, so I'm sure there's a lot of good information on that, of that option. We worried back in 2002 when the hailstorm came through and tore our house up from windows, roof, siding, but we've had a little hail since then. These seem to be very durable. I mean, but they do evaluate the quality of your roof, because if you're going to need a new roof soon, you want to do that before you put the panels up, because when we have to re-roof, the installer will have to come remove the panels and then put them back on. So they do evaluate the quality of your roof before you put them up there.
And sorry.
Anybody else have a question?
Do the panels last?
Huh?
How long do the panels last?
How long will they last?
Yeah.
I think they're predicted to last 25 to 50 years with virtually no maintenance.
Sorry, I'm done.
Bob?
Some of y'all may or may not know we have a commercial application. We got 2 geothermal furnaces. One for the upstairs, which we want to keep around room temperature, one downstairs with the winery, which we keep at 55. So the zoning on one unit was not the way to go, so we got 2 units to do that. They're pretty well. Now, I would have to say that furnaces use a lot of electricity. We've got small space, they have the same amount of electricity as the house does. So we have expansion plans if it works out. So we intend to combine all of the different sources. So we have geothermal and solar to provide electricity to offset the power usage of geothermal. We do not have propane anymore. We don't have to use propane. We have it at the house, but not at the winery. And there's also the ability to combine the wind power and, like I say, your typical wind power, like a windmill, and they're bad on birds, so it goes. But there's another design. There's like a spiral, about 20 foot tall, circular spiral that blows it so you don't, chop up the birds, and that supplies quite a lot of power. So you have, if you combine all these sources to compensate, one had to this make it up with the different. I mean, not solar, you have to have sunlight. It doesn't work too well without it. Wind, you got to have wind, and they alternate. You get one time or another. So you can do all of them. And my incentive is economic, because primarily, I don't see the price of energy going down anytime soon. It's probably going to go up a little bit, except for gas temporarily. So the idea over time, and they mentioned, the payback periods. So yeah, you're going to pay a bit more upfront, but you get it back, and this is quicker than I really had thought. I thought 10, 15 year payback, but it's forward. So the payback period, is quite a bit more quicker than I had thought. We did have solar. We lived in Virginia for the hot water heater, but now it's PV. You're talking about PV, so using all of those to get all power together, will make up. You live like you're doing, power free. Your energy cost, nothing. I mean, extra good, and there's nothing extra on it. You can correct me if I'm right there. And the banking, as you say, the banking of your extra kilowatt hours. Last time I looked into it, so we have our wiring across a little road, but if you throw it out on the grid, then they will tie it into your house. So even though we may overproduce, we may produce more electricity than we need, but we offset that against not only wiring, but the house as well. So that will offset all of that type of thing. What was not talked about today, may not be appropriate anyway, is water recycle, because we also have a lot of roof area. You can bring up water in and purify your water and reuse it for cleaning. We have a lot of the winery is a whole lot of cleaning, sanitation and so forth. So being able to recycle all the water and put it in. What you don't, once you finish recycling for cleaning in the water and so forth, then he puts out the pond and you irrigate with it. So all the different uses, it's a matter of a combination of everything, not only just one or the other. I don't plan to put birds in there. I ain't that age. Get that in Virginia and got tired and hashed it out. But anyway, other than that, what else I have a note on here? Okay, that's about what I have. And the idea is that payback period is faster than I thought, and you can use them all, and so it's a combination of one or the other, not necessarily.
Anybody else?
Well, there's no question that electric rates in Kentucky have been very reasonable for years. And we all know they're definitely going to get higher. I need down with what's going on with the coal situation and so forth. But I think these are all very good alternatives and worth taking a serious look at. And Clay, I think a man will cut your trees.
Yeah.
Clay will cut your trees.
It's really exciting to me to hear what's already happening. I mean, we often think about renewable energy as something in the future, and maybe we can eventually get ourselves to make changes, but you all, and some of you here in the audience too, have already begun. You know, there's experience now to draw from, and the more of us who make those changes, the more the costs will come down, because so much of this is all dependent on what they call economy of scale. So if 10 people use solar, it's going to cost a lot more. If 1,000 people use solar, it's going to cost less. And if 1,000,000 people use solar, it's going to cost way less. So it's, you know, I think most change happens and has to happen from our brains out. And the fact that our brains are already working with these options and beginning to see not only there are these three possibilities, but as Bob says, and you could also combine them and then think of what you'd have. So it's extremely hopeful to me to hear this conversation tonight. Dick?
A couple of people mentioned interactions with the local co-op, the REC, Rural Electric Co-ops. I live in an area that's not served by such an entity, but I did at one time. As I understand it, these are in fact user-owned co-ops, and the board members are elected from users in the area. Has anybody had conversations with any of these people about wind or PV or?
Sue just came from a conference about this very thing last week, right?
Well, I did go to, it was at Danville, they had the East Kentucky Co-op, kind of a meeting of all their 16 co-ops, and they did discuss the different renewable energy. They were talking mostly about solar. They would prefer to see the co-ops offer the solar farms, but it sounded like the consumers will always pay a premium to use a renewable energy source. You know, they felt like that people that generated all of their own energy, like a solar, we don't generate all of ours because we use propane, but that we're then not contributing to the support of the infrastructure that's out there to provide electricity to everybody else. But, you know, we're providing them with renewable energy, an energy source that doesn't have the disadvantages of fossil fuels. So, but, you know, somewhere...
And it doesn't cost them anything to generate either.
Right, it doesn't cost them anything.
So why should you have to pay a fee to use the...
You know, those are things that in the future, as more and more people do use renewable sources, maybe there would be you would pay a fee for using the lines that transport the energy. Maybe, I don't know. But they're very conscious of the fact that more and more people are interested in renewable energy, and they're concerned about the fact that it may go the way of landline phones, that now the telephone companies have lost so many users of landlines that they can't support their infrastructure. So looking way down the road with energy, that's a possibility. If enough people use a renewable source of energy, then it really hurts their way of business as it exists today. So.
But didn't you say you put it, I thought you said you put it back in the grid.
We do.
Not in this state or something.
Yes, we know. It goes to KU. So I'm sure they're using that. They're not putting it in a little bank over here waiting for us to 10 years from now to say, oh, I need those kilowatt hours now. They're sending them to somebody else.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, no, it's
Mary?
going directly onto the grid. So they're using them. Yes.
And right now, that 1,000 kilowatts that you may collect in the summertime, if you collected that ahead of time, could it offset your propane use in the winter to use those kilowatts to heat your house if you had central heat and air?
Oh, I think if we heated with electricity, we would probably generate enough to almost cover all of our electric needs. But we bought a house that had an old fuel oil furnace in it, and our option to upgrade from that was to go to propane. And you know, that's what would be interesting, you know, if the duct system can be used with a geothermal system. But I'm kind of like some other people, electric heat is not very comforting to me.
No. And I'm waiting for infrared heat to make the energy shift too. You know, you can heat with infrared heat, it's a lot warmer.
But
Just a couple of announcements before we draw this to a close. The very person whose company installed Sue and Phil's solar system, his name is Sam Avery, and he's from Louisville, and he's written a book called The Pipeline and the Paradigm that just came out in the last 6 months. It's a wonderful book, very easy to read and full of very interesting and wise information. He's speaking Thursday night this week at E-Town Community College in E-Town at 7 o'clock. The information about that is here. It's free. And if you're really interested in energy issues, that's a great opportunity. Also on November 15th, the Festival of Faiths is sponsoring a day-long event called What's Going On with the Energy Independence Boom. And it's trying to address the questions not only of pipelines. Kentucky could be full of pipelines by the time they get finished with this grand plan, but also what's going on with fracking and what's going on with the petrochemical industries, and how much of our nation are we going to destroy in the name of energy independence. The panel for that day is Sam Avery, excuse me, Dr. Phil Simmons from the University of Louisville Medical Ethics Department, and Sarah Lynn Cunningham, who's an environmental engineer who's working a lot on climate change issues. So that should be a wonderful opportunity as well. And then I wanted to tell you that Dick Shore, Dr. Dick Shore, and his wife Faith came all the way here from Lexington tonight because they're interested in doing something in Lexington around soft uses of alternative energy, like what we're doing here tonight. And they wanted to see how it worked. So welcome and thanks for coming, and let us know what happens with your all's program. It's really neat to know that people all over the country are starting to think these kinds of thoughts. I can't thank the three of you enough. This has been a really interesting conversation, full of information that is new to me, and I suspect all of our present audience and all of our TV audience as well. So I think this will be a major contribution to our Tri-County area and beyond to help people to begin to think more about the reality that we can avert the disaster that climate change could cause us if we don't change. And here are folks who have begun to make changes, and they're working out really well, and the rest of us can also make changes bit by bit, and one small step at a time. And please, if you haven't watched Wendell Berry's interview with Bill Moyers that aired for the first time yesterday, make sure you watch it because it's one of the most inspiring things I've experienced in a very long time. So thanks for being here tonight. Thanks to our TV audience for tuning in. And we'll let you know when we're going to be doing our next Sustainable Communities Forum, which will probably be November or early December.